Hi there, a warm welcome to everybody watching us out there and joining us from around the world. So it's great to see you for this edition of our Deep Dive series, in which we are presenting the winning solutions of the UX Design Awards. We very much hope to offer you valuable insights on design and user research, and of course on new developments in the UX domain. My name is Ake Rudolph. I'm leading the International Design Center Berlin and the UX Design Awards. So very happy to have you here. A quick info up front. If you're watching us on LinkedIn now, please bring in your questions to the event comments and we'll bring them in to the Q&A after the presentation. And if you're on Zoom with us, you can also join live. And if you want to join live, you can just hop to our website and register on Zoom there. Today, I have the pleasure to present a design leader who achieved a rare feat, which is winning 2 product awards in one competition season. We're talking here about 2 connected touchpoints of one digital banking service, a banking app, and a service kiosk. And they were both launched by GoTyme Bank across the Philippines. The awards jury was won over by the fact that GoTyme succeeded where many have failed, to make a key service available to all. According to the jury, and this is their words, these products exemplify how banking should be: unfussy, relatable, satisfying, and very straightforward. So making something appealing and simple at the same time is no small feat. Therefore, I'm very happy to welcome the key person behind the GoTyme banking service today. And I will be looking forward very much to him walking us through the research and UX design of this double award winner. With me today is Silvano D'Orazio. He is the group head of user experience and brand at Tyme Group. It's a multi-country digital bank based in Singapore. So Silvano, are you here with us? Your career of more than 20 years has taken you from the design industry to the fintech sector. You're now based in Hong Kong, but your team works in Vietnam. Your company, as I said before, is in Singapore. Your customers in the Philippines, but also in South Africa. So you're a very international person. And today you're joining us actually from your native country, Italy. So a very warm welcome to this deep dive. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you so much for having me, Ike. And it's a pleasure to be here, really.
Wonderful. Why don't you take over and let's see a little bit more about the 2 award-winning projects.
For sure. As you mentioned, we're going to be focusing today on the GoTyme Bank experience, which is divided into main interfaces. And one is the main digital apps, which is a classical digital banking apps, and the other one is a little bit more unique. It's the kiosk, which is our essentially key proposition for the whole company. So let me start sharing my screen. I guess you guys see it, right? Good to go. Yeah, so I actually call this presentation a story of beauty and care, which we're definitely going to focus on the UX aspect of this one, how we build the app and how we build the kiosk, and how we make sure that people understand what is written and is displayed in those interfaces. But also there is a very nice combinations of aesthetic in the app. So it's not really just about functionality. There are aha moments in the app, which is very important for the user. So it's really not just about the functionality itself of the app. It's also about bringing and leveraging the beauty that design can really convey in the app across the different interfaces. So the agenda for today, obviously there will be a quick intro, and then of course I'm going to dive in a little bit around our design principle in my design team and how the design team is structured, because I suppose this is also interesting from, or among our community. There are different structure particularly in banking and in fintech company when it comes to design. So it's important to see how we are structured ourselves. Also our way of work, the way we work, it's very simple, quite straightforward. We of course use a progressive way of work. But then also we're gonna, dig down into the intersections of the kiosk and the app and the way they communicate to each other and why the kiosk has been so successful for the user and how has been particularly bridging the gap, but which for traditional banks, it's one of the main pain points, right? So when it comes to digital banks, people are a little bit reluctant to put money in there. They definitely put money in there, but particularly if the bank is very successful. But however, traditionally, they don't see any branches around the town. You don't see any kind of big, real estate in the country. So they make them a little bit more skeptical a little bit at the beginning, particularly in those countries where, there is a big digital divide as well as the digital bank is probably not that well known. So trust, it's always a key word for every financial institution, even more for, digital banks. Then I'm gonna showcase a couple of case studies for the kiosk and some others for the apps. And then the last one will be more about reflecting on this balance in between the beauty and functionality we bring into the part. And I'm very happy to take QAs at the very end of the presentation. So yeah, guys, so please get ready with some of the questions. Please be nice. Right. Okay, let me move on. So what's GoTyme Bank anyway? Well, GoTyme Bank, first of all, is a digital bank. Surprise, surprise, right? And it's a digital bank that has been launched and is actually serving the Philippines as a main market. And when we launched in 2021, 50%, roughly 50% of the adult population did not have a bank account. This number is actually growing. It's actually reducing. So there are more people that are opening a bank accounts. I'd like to think that we are one of these key players. But since we launched also, we gained in 2021, now it's about 3 years, we gained 2.5 million customers. So we're going incredibly, incredibly well. We're on board roughly around 600 people per day. Our NPS score is also raising in the past year, which is incredibly good. It raises roughly 10 points. I don't really remember the exact number. I suppose it's around 60. I'm not sure about it though. And one of the main reasons why the NPS score is raised, one of the top 5 reasons is because the app is actually easy to use, which is incredibly, incredibly important. It's not just for a designer itself, I guess for the entire organization, I guess for entire business. This is actually one of the main takeaway that I want to highlight during this presentation, which is having a good design eventually pays back, not just designers themselves, but also the entire organization raising into the ladder of the UX maturity. It's actually paying back eventually, right? We're actually doing also very well for the app stores and the Google Play stores. We are rating a 4.3 and 4.6, and we're actually increasing with this one. So I have a few design principles that I keep sharing with my team, really. And one of the top one, it's of course, stay close to the user, really close to the user. So see, I am a designer myself, right? As a background, I grew up as a designer, and there is a tendency for designers to work in isolation and stay really connected to their laptop and somehow get pleased of what designing. And it's a little bit quite often tempting to not expose their work to the entire world. But when you're designing for a product, you have to make sure that that product works. So actually the only reason to make sure that it works is to put the car on the road and see if it actually drives very fast. So one of the key principles is stay close to the user, stay really close. Be strategic always. This is my mantra every day. And it's what does it mean? Being strategic is actually been taken at every level in my team. It's been taken in the way we prepare presentation when we discuss with stakeholders. It's also in the way we design. When we design, so one of the complexity of this app, or particularly for the GoTyme app, is that has many, many features, and more features are lining up along the way, and keeping a good balance around these features is very tricky. When a designer or a small team works on a particular feature, probably don't think about the entire architecture of the app or even the entire experience of the user. And often this is happening quite often in the tech industry. Because they are divided in silos, they tend to focus on features by features, then forgetting the overall stories. And then when the user embark in a journey, they somehow see or experience potentially different mini apps within the same app. So being strategic means obviously and think about the end-to-end experience for the user, but also the entire app experience. This is obviously not mine. It's about falling in love with the problem, not with the solution. This is also another one of the downside of being a designer. You tend to fall in love with what you design. You tend to be pleased with what you design. It's actually one of the reasons when you become a designer and you start designing, it's one of the key high moment that you have, right? Oh, I really like what I'm doing. But the reality is that for a product, you really have to raise your level of empathy into the system. You really need to understand what the user is struggling or is experiencing at the moment to make sure you convey essentially a very good solution eventually. Of course, I stay up to date with tools, techs, and behaviors. I put behaviors at the very end because behaviors in product is really almost everything. So the way the user behaves and interact with their interface will sometimes change because in their country, they used to practically be experienced to a particular journey, but also because technology changed, right? When I started, obviously, I'm not going to reveal my age now, but when I started, there were not internet connections. The World Wide Web wasn't that famous at that time, and the smartphones has been launched along the way much later. So this new UX design job actually arrived a little bit later, and screens and designs and technology constantly changing, and we God knows where we're going to go with this AI really. And because it's changing all the time, so the experience is changing all the time and for the user, and they in the future we get accustomed to some things which are very complicated now, so people in the future maybe they're going to go very fast in some other situations. And the last one, it's really it's really about working hard. And the second part of this one, which is product, it's an alive organism. This is actually what I raised in the point number 4, which is everything is constantly changing. So when we deliver a final solution, we actually don't really finish the job, right? Things are constantly changing. The system is changing. The business is offering new things. Even within the same flow, within the same journey, we might going to have different propositions. Or even, as I said, experience is going to change, or technology is going to change. Mobile screens is going to be different. People are going to be wearing, VR devices and so on and so forth. How we are organized. So we are organized as a sort of mini boutique design agency in the company. And really, we are organized not in silos. We don't divide the design team in, for example, the team that is delivering the saving account. So the team is taking care of payments, or the team is taking care of the origination. We actually divided by expertise, even personal ambitions or previous experience. I'll try to unpack a little bit quicker on this one. Expertise means that designers are not always the same, right? There are designers that are very strategic. There are other designers that are very focused on aesthetic, very good in UI. There are designers that are very good in both. There are some designers that they love to work in motions design. Some of the designers are actually not designers at all, are UX writers, even though in my team, we consider UX writers as practically part of the design team as they design with words. And so we are organized in this way. We also taking into account what are the personal ambitions, where the different teams wants to grow into. There might be some designers that are very good in UX that they want to expand a little bit more in UI. There are good designers that are good in both in everything. It's probably, the best situation for me, and etc. So really, we sit all around the same table. We don't split in different teams, as I said, although when it's necessary, people travel with their laptop and they go directly to the different teams. So in the team, there is a part which is called the UX hub. These are the strategies. Those are the people that work on the entire journey from the very beginning, potentially until the end. There might be some situations where they're busy working on the UI, or probably they draft the UI, but probably that is not the best. And this is when the UI Hub team jumps in to support the process. It's a very fluid and organic process. It's not really strict in terms of steps. It might be that some designers is able to deliver the UI, and it might be that some designers are not able to deliver a good high standard UI. Therefore, the UI team jumps in to support with this one. UX Writing Hub. We have two amazing UX writers. One is called Gideon and the other one is JM. And those are really designers with words. Very often, company underestimate the power of UX writing. It's incredibly important. Of course, there is a small team dedicated to motion design. They all things about everything that moves in the app. But it could be a model that moves up and down. So they define, fast, and they define if they're gonna go fast or slow, etc. And then, of course, a research hub, which is fundamental for us. The research hub, it's basically composed by UX researcher, which define what kind of methodology we're going to use, and also support the main activity for us, which is really usability testing. But we don't only do usability testing. And of course, we do have a design systems. The way we work, so it's a progressive way we work. And for each of those vertical lines, we actually call those events. And these are when we interact with our key stakeholders. So for every task, in this case, we are imagining a big task. Let's imagine we had to launch a completely new flows. It could be a new Go saving accounts for the company. We consider that one a size L. So we size a different task according to what is the demand for that particular case. In the very worst case scenario or best case scenario for us, we practically have different stages, and we progress it to the next one only when we are fully aligned all together in the things we did before. So there will be a kickoff meeting, of course. That's probably stage 01. It might be that we need a generative research at this stage. This is when the researcher or even the designers with researcher, they go into the user field, that they try to understand what is happening into the market, what is the current experience that they're having for similar features. But it's also very important for those cases where the features is such a completely new features into the market. Therefore, we do need to understand a little bit more from the user. So the generative research, it doesn't happen as frequent as the evaluative part, which is usability testing, although it does happen throughout the year. It might be some cases where we don't need, we make the decision to not take a generative research, and then therefore we move on straight into designing the journey. And we design a journey in low fidelity with just boxes and lines as a sort of, typical journey map design. And then we share with our stakeholders. This is what we've been thinking in terms of a high level journey for the user. And we get alignments and feedback from different product owners, all different members of the team up to the business really. And we do this with regular catch up with everybody. And every time we agree with one stage, we move on to the next one. So the next one is really the core one, the wireframing. The wireframing, it's done in different level of fidelity. There is a high fidelity and low fidelity wireframes. So we move on in different rounds every time that we make an agreement for what is the wireframing. In all of this process, designers really drive the entire conversations, I would say. We really move into the UI when we're fully happy and to take the UI decisions, right? There are some decisions that it doesn't really sit longer into the wireframing and is actually into the UI part. It could be like, for example, we have information into the page and we don't know how we switch in between these different information. It could be that we have a long scroll. It could be that we have to switch in between different pages. So therefore, the answer to that question really sits into the UI. Once we're ready with the UI, and even this one we do in different iterations, then we set usability testing for the user. We prototype our UI. We try to stay close to the final delivery. We really want to make sure that what the tester is going to experience is exactly what is going to be released. We use ProtoPie for the best usability testing prototype. But we also, of course, use Figma prototype, which is getting better and better every day. The usability testing, it's done in 2 different rounds. We actually don't do in only 1 round. In the very first rounds, we test with 5 different peoples. Actually, nowadays we're doing 6 just to make sure we got the right number. And sometimes some people are disengaged what they have to test. Then if there are blockers or if there are problems, we spend 2-3 days to quickly brush it up and use solutions. And then we test it for a completely different round of people asking exactly the same question and see if we solve the problem. Doing in this way, we really solved most of the problems that we had in our app. So when we launch, it's actually already in a very good shape. Then we had handed over to the developers, and then we keep looking an eye and checking what is happening, how the product is performing. Right, let me move on. So the kiosk and the app intersections. So I was actually saying at the very beginning, because traditionally digital banks suffer from the fact that they're fully digital, they're very fast, very lean, they're very young as well, right? But they are probably not present in town, and users tend to be a little bit more skeptical, particularly particularly when you move money. You really want to make sure where you move money, right? So, and one of the key proposition for this company is to have kiosks. So kiosks are distributed in the country, and mostly in partners, supermarket and shopping center, even small shopping center. There will always be there is always an ambassador next to the kiosk, which provide a physical presence to the entire organization. And this is really where we bridge the gap in between digital and physical. We call this experience phygital experience, actually. And the main functions of the kiosk is to onboard people. The people on the kiosk, when they arrive at the kiosk, they can open a bank account within 5 minutes. The kiosk also print a debit card with their name on it immediately if they open a bank account. Or the user can also onboard through the digital app and then eventually travel to the kiosk to print debit cards. The kiosk doesn't transact any money. However, the user can go back after they open a bank account to print a debit card, as I said, but also probably lock the debit cards if there are any problems that they cannot find it, or even get the card replacements in case they lose it, or in case the card doesn't work anymore or probably expires. Right, so let's take a look at the kiosk and the way it works. So I've got a video here.
Banks in the Philippines usually take weeks to deliver or replace physical debit cards and have neither accessible branches nor physical touchpoints that users can rely on when they can't access those banks' mobile apps. The GoTyme Bank Kiosk makes banking services accessible in a way that can't be achieved through digital touchpoints alone. Users can open a bank account through the kiosk or the app and instantly print a physical card bearing their name. The kiosk also lets them replace lost or stolen cards immediately, confirm their identity to get their account verified, check their account balance, reset their card PIN, lock their card for security purposes, and many more. A qualitative usability test was conducted by the GoTyme Bank design team to assess the kiosk's features and to observe how target users interact with the machine. The findings revealed a high success rate and consisted of positive feedback on the card printing technology. GoTyme Bank kiosks are distributed all over the country, across the locations of one of the country's biggest retail network, making them more convenient to access than physical bank branches.
Okay, good. So let's take a look again at the kiosk and the way it works. It's actually divided in 3 main areas. So the main screen is actually the one that the user is going to interact to open a bank account. So as I said, it could be that they want to print a debit card if they have already onboarded through the app. Then there is a secondary screen at the very top, which is mostly used for marketing banners. But it also has a functionality throughout the onboarding process, which I'm going to show you a little bit later. And then the bottom, there is an area, of course, to scan documents, IDs, etc., to essentially open a bank account. And the bottom area is to print a debit card if the user wants at the given time or probably later. So we do call the main screens the one that the user interacts for the main reason, but essentially for the user that is working by a kiosk, the main screens is actually the big one, the one that I see at the very top. So those are the ones that sell the banks and the proposition. Therefore, the user get close to the kiosk. As I said, there will be an ambassadors next to that one that will help throughout the entire process, but also give a sense of familiarity for the user in the country, so that when you have someone, you really understand that there is not just bits and numbers behind these. So the user arrive at the kiosk, they can open a bank account, but they can also log in if they already have bank accounts. And I'm going to show you some key slides that I have here. And then eventually after this one, I will show you a quick video again to really explain how the kiosk works. So the main objective for the kiosk is to make the user open a bank account with us. We call this one the onboarding process. So it's interesting that we decided to go for a dark background for the kiosk, and the app instead, nowadays it's in a light background. This is intentionally because often where the kiosk is positioned next to the entrance, next to a cashiers, it's often very overlit. It's an area, I've been working in retail in the past, it's an area where shopping center or supermarkets, they put a lot of lights. They want to make sure the user has some sort of invitation to enter into the retail store. So by using a dark background, we practically ensure that the contrast is well delivered. Another thing which was not very challenging, but kind of obvious, but eventually was a bit challenging for us, that the same onboarding process is actually happening in the app as well. It's actually the same steps to open a bank account. However, the kiosk experience, it's landscape, when instead typically, an app, it's portrait. So we had to practically shift the organization on the elements throughout and try to really maximize an entire surface of the screen. So in this particular screen, the user can check, can select the phone numbers, country code. Then at some points throughout the process of the onboarding, the user have to stop looking at the main screens and actually looking up above, what is happening up above. And we actually inform the user into the main screens. In these actually screens, when the user finish part of the presentation, part of the process, not the full process, they have to look up above at the big screens, because behind the frame of that big screens, there are actually three digital cameras that record the face of the user in 3 different angles, just to make sure that we reduce the number of errors, really. So, and because the camera positioned it up above, because we had to take photos from a straight view from the user, and user also has different height when they come to the kiosk, we had to make sure the user look up above. So at this stage, when the user understand what is going to happen, this is when the user make the decision, okay, I understand, I'm ready to look up. And then if they're still insisting to looking at the screens, we actually animated a one and we say, hey, look up above. And what is happening up above, we give, of course, a countdown when we're going to start recording the screens. The design of the screens from the moment that we capture the face is actually very simple. It's very minimal. There is no point here to be, how can I say, fancy, right? In this case, the user has just to look at a particular area of the screens. On the right side of that screen, on the frame, there are 3 different cameras, as I said. We also use the entire screens of the up above screens as a way to illuminate the user face. So it actually works as a sort of flashing camera. Then when it's all done, the user can look back at the small screens below, and we explain that it's all set and it's all done. So then the user can print a debit card, or they can control the debit cards immediately. I have video for this one, which really probably going to explain how this works. Good. Let's move on into the second part of the presentation, which is talking about the app experience. I have three case studies here. I mean, the main one is transferring money, and right, transferring money is probably a key features in every banking system. In the Philippines, there are mainly two ways to transfer money. One is the typical bank-to-bank transfer, and this is typically it takes longer. And then there is this is actually called PesoNet, and it practically kicks in when the user attempt to transfer over 50,000 pesos. Then there is another much faster and seamless experience, which is when the user wants to transfer below 50,000 pesos, and the system is called InstaPay. So what we decided to do into these screens, we actually didn't want to pass the problem to the user. Hey, read about PesoNet, hey, read about InstaPay. And then therefore they have to understand that system and therefore make that decision, understanding, okay, I understand if I had to transfer more than 50,000 pesos, I had to click into PesoNet and so on. So what we did, we call this one the auto switch. So it's a kind of fast track process. The users start inputting the amount because that's what they want to do. The objective of the user at this time is to transfer money to someone, and very likely they know already how much they want to transfer, rather than learning in an entire system, transferring system that is actually in the country. So if the user start tapping the amount which is below 20,000 pesos, then we automatically take the journey. We route the journey down to the InstaPay, the quick one. But if the user attempt to transfer more than 50,000 pesos, then we really now kicks in the completely different journeys. And in here, because there will be delays, we really clarify to the user that what is going to happen. And now this one isn't going to take a different process. It's called PesoNet, and it's free still with us. However, it might take up to 3 days. So this was a really some sort of important decision for the UX process. This is where really we spend most of the times with our UX strategies. We really want to make the experience as human as possible, because at the end of the day, people, they do a different job. They're not into the banking industry. They are not, it's not their job to understand how a payment system works in every country. Another one is part of this transfer is the spending bar, or what we call the spending bar. When the user is disbursing money from the app, for whatever occasion, one of which could be the transfer, I just showed you before, but it could also be paying bills or transferring money for whatever reason, buying some electricity or buying some data for their smartphones. So in this spending bar, we show the user how much the balance is going to change, the before and after, visually, not just with numbers. So the bar that you see up above, it changes according to the amount that the user take. We, of course, have been listing down all the different case studies, including the worst case study, which is the edge cases for us as raw messages. Another features, it's called Kiko. Kiko stands for cash in and cash out. The user with these features can essentially withdraw money and deposit cash at different stores. They can withdraw money, of course, by using a debit card at any ATM in the country. Although they can also go to the, frequent stores or the stores that I have in town. The transaction is very often free or for a very small fee. And in these features, the user, whether they're gonna cash in or cash out, the user can select the experience based on three main factors. The main one, it's of course, checking in the app. The design of this one, it's intentionally designed as a sort of Uber-like design, Uber or Grab for those living in in Asia, and therefore the main stage is taken over by the map, which is the closest to the user. So the decision there is made by proximity. The user will make a decision based on which one is the closest store to them. But it might be that the user take a decision based on the amount, because there are different fees. Therefore, there could be some 7-Eleven's fees which are different by Uncle John's fees. So therefore, the decision here is particularly based on the amount the user want to cash in or cash out. And the last one, it's really a simple list of the different stores. This is because maybe the user wants to go to their particular stores because, for example, they have to buy some particular things at that store. So therefore, they can make a decision specifically based on the different stores. As you can see here, we've been taking into account the different situations that the user has encountered into this one. It's also worth to mention that this is an experience that it doesn't really happen within or inside the user most comfortable zone. The user has to really physically move with their phones and go to a store. So the experience is actually happening beyond their houses or where they are probably sitting on that stage. They have to move. They have to show a barcode to cash out or cash in money and so on and so forth. We've been taking into account, so that's that space as well. So often the designers consider that it's all happening in a very comfy area for the user, when instead it often happens that the user has doing different things at that given moment, or they're probably jumping in between different apps, etc. The next one is bank statement. I'll try to go a little bit more fast on this one. So the user can select the different bank statements. So the architecture of the page is actually divided in two main areas. So the very top areas is very informative for the very beginning. So we particularly explain the user what do they have to do, even though it's kind of straightforward. So the user can select a different amount select the different bank statements. It's very common for in the Philippines to download or get bank statements, because it's often used to get the visual approvals. For example, when they had to travel abroad. When they had to travel abroad, it's required for them for some particular countries to provide a bank statement. And very often they ask the last 3 months or the last 6 months. So we made the decision for the user at the very beginning. That's why you see those two buttons. Then eventually the user can select which range the bank statements they want. And the top area now, it changes and it becomes, this is what is actually happening. Because maybe you haven't understand from the very bottom. Also because the very bottom, it's also technically a long scroll. The user can go down in the bank statements request down to the previous year. So it might be that they probably missed exactly what they did. So that's why the top area has been taken over as a more explanatory area. Then the user will have a confirmation page in which they select how they want this PDF to be sent. And then it's good to go. The next one is probably the last one, and it's the GoSave saving account. It's probably again, it's a key feature for every bank, right? And in this flow, the user can open different saving accounts and move money to each of those different accounts. At the very beginning, they only see one saving account, and then the user tap into open a bank account, so they can select different amounts. They can also select different images and put a name into the GoSave accounts if they want, and the user is the account has been created. Then the next step is for the user to what we call the saving tools. So the saving tools are a way to augment the saving experience for the user. The user in this page can set up different functionalities, such as the autosave. So they automatically save a particular amount in different dates. Or the user can also save a small amount of amounts. We call that one save the change, in case the user has to round up some changes, those changes that they can practically go directly into the saving account. And the next one, it's the user can set a target amount in the future. So they can say, this is how much I want to save it, and by which date I want to save it. In that case, the app also suggests a frequency for the amount they want to save it, etc., etc. So, and then when the user created a saving account, so that saving account, as I said, there could be multiple saving accounts. That saving account it looks like that. Now, let's take a look at some key finding for the usability testing. Actually, before that one, I want to show you what it looks like changing an image for the saving accounts. On the far left, you can see the user has opened essentially 5 different saving accounts. For each of these, the user can select the target amounts or target date if they want. They can also see how much are they saving at that given time. So it's a sort of overview of the different saving accounts. But the users can also select different icons. We didn't intentionally put any labels of those icons because every user is going to have their own interpretation of the iconography there. Those icons are not for, it doesn't work as a CTA to move on into the journey. It actually works just to identify and differentiate the different saving accounts. So there have been a conversation in the company when we were designing this one to also provide the user the possibility to share and use their own images into that one. You know, it's worth nothing that I wasn't particularly happy to have that showing or giving the ability to the user to select the different images, because I was thinking, oh God, then they're gonna select different images, and then they're gonna somehow alterate, let's say, the design. But then we had a few conversations internally, particularly with designers from the Philippines. We also have designers and writers from the Philippines, and them being pushing and say, actually, we think it would be very well received in the country. So I step back because I come from a different background. I'm from Italy and not from from the Philippines. And I said, okay, let's go ahead with this one. And even though I was thinking that's what the user is probably going to do, actually it turns out that what they did was actually changing many of the saving accounts in different images. But this went viral in social media, and users really like these features. It's actually now that generated some sort of competition. Yeah. So as a designers thinking that probably they're going to ruin the purity of the design, we've been thinking that actually it's actually the job of a designers, right? To make sure the user engage with the experience and also have what I called before a haha moment, the moment that really brings delight into the journey. It doesn't really change anything into the saving process. It's just that the user can now engage and participate more with the app experience. So I guess, I mean, I'm fully pleased on what is happening, particularly because people are sharing all of this during social media, and with the most creative. Filipinos are very creative, as you can see. A couple of more points for usability testing here. So one of the key things that we noticed during opening saving accounts for the first time, or anytime the user open a saving accounts, is that on screen number 4, the user actually don't explore the saving tools. On screen number 4, the user wants to see immediately the Go Save. So by giving this opportunity here, but actually the user skip the saving tools, which is important for the bank, but actually important also for the user. So the screen number 5 is actually very often skipped. This is what we have found that during the usability testing. We do usability testing in different rounds, right? So what we did here, we simply swap over the screens, and then we make the user pass through saving tools first. And then if they want, they can skip on the top right button, and then therefore they can go out throughout to the journey. This is actually happening very often. For example, when you travel to different countries and you want to withdraw money to a different ATM, and maybe the ATM system is not very well known to you, and in maybe some countries it happened that you put your debit cards in there, you put your PIN, and then the machine gives money immediately. So you take the money and then you leave and you forget the debit cards into the machine. The machine hits back, the debit cards. This is because in the entire journey, the user doesn't accomplish the mission before the entire journey is over. That's why swapping those two screens actually solved the problem. And that's why in some countries, the user first suggests you take your card first, then you take the cards, and then you take the money after, right? So to make sure the entire process is completed. The second key finding is very, very interesting. In the landing page when we advertise for the user to open a saving accounts, during usability testing, we have 2 different rounds of usability testing. During the very first round of usability testing, the user actually don't see that banner. the questions that you want to open a saving account for whatever reason, see if you can do it by yourself. And the users scroll up and down and they don't see start saving. And the main reason why they don't see it is because they scan the words very quickly. And the icons also helps to make them think that the one is actually a banner, nothing to do with entire features. So in the second round of the usability testing, we actually did another 2 rounds and we ended up having a A/B testing, and we had 2 options. In the very first option A, we actually been playing with words and we put a button, much more clear, open a saving account. And we also changed the icons because the gift box wasn't probably the best to, particularly express the saving accounts. In the option B, instead, we swap over the words and we move the icons before. The one that really performed best is the option B, because even if the option A went much better, the user see that the one is actually a button, the 4F features. A lot of people that still scanning the very first line, and because they scan the very first line, they assume that it's actually still a banner. When instead, swapping up the words and making the very first line open a Go Save account in option B as a main proposition, it makes them figure out what is actually going to happen if they tap into the buttons. It's actually a very, very simple adjustment that it was very effective, very powerful. We're now getting towards the end of the presentations. Yeah, you mentioned at the very beginning, we actually got 2, UX design awards, and we're actually very, very, very happy, particularly with you guys, that you're kind of strict in the way you scrutinize the different design awards. But in 2023, we also won 2 Red Dot Awards. We also won a Design for Asia Award, a Creative Pool, a Bronze Award, a Good Design Award also in 2023, and quite recently a International Design Award, a gold medal. So we are in the right space. I can tell we are in the right space. Obviously, this one pleased all the design team. To me, there is nothing best to see that the user actually engage with the app that you have designed, and they actually understand what you want to express into the app itself. I have a UX film here that really represent what we did with the design. We did this one internally with the UX motion designer. We've been shooting this one in the office. That is actually our designers, and it's our office. Back in September, I've been invited to talk in a UX conference in the Philippines, one of the largest in Asia. And I've been reflecting about these topics, which is the duality in between beauty and functions and how the two really intersect each other. And very often the people think of the two in a separate way. My main point is that these two main things are actually not divided, are part of the same stories. And there are different stories within a journey. And within a journey, there are even older stories. Maybe the user is in a moment that they had to transfer money, they had to stay very focused on the number they're going to write in there. Or maybe it's towards the end of the journey when the user has accomplished their mission. There is where we can probably, jazz up a little bit the screens and make it a little bit more fun for them. So really, it's not about choosing one and versus the other and sacrifice the other. And it's not really, and it's really about choosing to be thoughtful and caring about our audience. This is what it is to me, good design, which is really about care. And care requires dedications. And dedication requires very hard work. Okay, good. I think I made it through the end. Just, if you guys want to keep in touch, then I will pass the ball to you, Ake. So these are our main contacts. The very first one, it's my LinkedIn page. We're hiring. We're really seeking incredibly dedicated and passionate designers. So please get in touch with me. And the second one, it's more about the fun part, which is the Instagram page for the design team. Yeah, please join it and bear with us. We try to keep it updated at one. Yeah, but as you can imagine, we have different priorities, right? Good. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you so much, Silvano. Maybe you can switch off your presentation so people see your enlarged screen. I think it was a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing also the insights about the background, about how you structure your team, a little bit into the process. And of course, it seems so playful, but it's so complex, and there are so many layers that you worked on simultaneously. And as you said, I mean, making something simple in the end requires a lot of work and a lot of research and, of course, knowledge as well. And also judging from some comments we received, very meaningful, inspiring design. And actually, yes, a loving love for the images that people can bring into the app and actually own it. And it's something that I can really relate to also, that you need to put in an element of ownership, of gamification even into something as maybe serious as banking, but it becomes relatable then. It starts becoming part of yours. And I think if you can then even trigger communication about it on social media, then what else do you wish for? It's the best you could actually do. And it's nice to hear that that in this instance you didn't think about design systems and and your idea of where the product had to go, but you also listened to your team and a little bit about their opinion, but also intuition, and tried it out. So I think this is also an important message of also letting loose sometimes. Just very basically, to give a roundabout, how long did you work on the app and the kiosk, and which one did come first, or was it a simultaneous development?
Yeah, very good point. It was almost simultaneous. So we launched the app in 2021, and the main features that we had at that time, well, it's of course the onboarding process for both app and kiosk. We had to make sure the user open a bank account before they use the app. And then when we launched the app, we had practically basic features, which is saving account. And since then, we've been unstoppable. Every time there is a new release, the one that I show you during the presentation for about bank statements has been released last month. And there are other ones, which obviously I cannot disclose right now, but there are others, big, beautiful, important releases and different features that we're going to launch along the way. So roughly 1 year we've been working since we launched the very first draft. But as I said, it's constantly changing. The landing page is changing to accommodate different features. And it's very strategic. It's actually being designed in a way that it is scalable. Otherwise, our life will become incredibly, stressful. It's actually be impossible to manage the old things. This is becoming somehow a super app with many, many features in there. So somehow we had to design a system which doesn't really stick to the main release. It has to grow. It's part of the key points that I said at the very beginning. It's a live organism, right? So therefore, we had to design something that it's very scalable for us.
Well, 1 year is not a lot when you think about the kiosk system, which is a completely different ballgame. So I'm wondering about this one. Is this something unique? Were there examples for it? Why did you combine the two, the physical and the digital realm? And how did that idea come to life?
Yeah, obviously that one, it's the main business proposition wasn't us suggesting the kiosk, but it's what was the key success point in South Africa. Therefore, that's when we launched in the Philippines, we wanted to replicate exactly the same model or business model in other countries, knowing that even those countries are far away from each other, they actually share these commonalities in terms of being unbanked and being not very well served in the banking system. So having a kiosk that reinforces a sense of trust with the user, having some elements in particularly in a one of the most public moments for the user when they travel to supermarkets, it's one of the key success. So we knew that we had to do that one. It's interesting that when we designed the kiosk, I honestly thought that design would be very, very difficult, because during the design of the banking process for Go Save or pay bills or buy bars or pay for electricity or data or wherever, bank statements, etc. At the end of the day, those features are already somehow in the country, so at least are embedded in our culture. When instead the kiosk, it's a completely different things, and it's not even a mobile experience. It's more like kind of sort of iPad, even though it's not an iPad there. And when instead we went incredibly fast with the kiosk, when we did the usability testing for the kiosk, we had 2 rounds of schedule, thinking that probably we're going to encounter many problems for the user. But actually, we went so well at the very first round, it wasn't necessary to bring the second round into game. So actually, the very first round was very successful. We passed the over 70% of the problems. So it was very successful, and it's very intuitive. So yeah, the kiosk somehow luckily went much faster. What is challenging for us is, of course, the app, because it changes, has different features, etc.
But the decision to go for the kiosk itself, because we're used to ATM machines, but they have a completely different functionality. And now you created something resembling an ATM machine, a little bit more gamified maybe, but with a completely different goal for the users. And actually, there's also Sally Chan who wrote a message to us asking, well, so the kiosk is only about creating a new bank account. It doesn't accept digital transfer or cash deposits, which you would expect from a banking kiosk, right? So you went for a completely different, I mean, you jumped over expectations of users. So
yeah, obviously,
how did that start?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it wasn't the design decision to go for a kiosk. I guess it's some very smart brain in the company that decided to actually, let's try a kiosk and bridge this gap in between digital bank and physical institutions. Um, so it wasn't our idea to go for a kiosk. By definition, the kiosk cannot transact money. It's part of the regulations that we have with different countries as well, doesn't transact money. So the main objective for the kiosk is to open a bank account. That's why we're going incredibly fast at opening a bank account, but also print a debit card. So the user doesn't receive a card in their post after 2, 3, 5 days. It actually can print immediately. And if the user has a bank account, then the second functionality of the kiosk is to potentially reprint the debit cards or even block the debit cards if they have some problems. And they can also talk to ambassadors in case they have any problems with the bank itself. But yeah, going back to your questions, yeah, it wasn't our idea to go with the kiosk, but yeah.
But it worked out. Who are the ambassadors? Are these actual people who are employees of GoTyme Bank who stand next to the kiosk?
Those are employees of GoTyme Bank. And if you think, we actually raised the number of employees in the countries by employing different ambassadors. Well, of course, we go for young and trending and smart people that sits next to the kiosk, smiling and very, very friendly when the user embark with the entire process. Yeah, but there are actually people there.
Okay, so that's an important point, because it becomes relatable and it becomes inviting, and everything starts with a conversation, and we know about this. Of course, depending on the region and culture, it might be some people might go. Maybe in Europe, you would step around people and try to avoid to have something getting sold to you or asked from you. But in other cultures, it might be an invitation just to get a conversation started. So I think this is very nice. And of course, it could also help for people who are maybe older or, you know, have some kind of disability or you know, a less stronger eyesight and basically get onboarded much faster and easier. So that's an important point, I think. I was planning to ask you about the design because the design is, you said that it's about creating trust in banking, of course, and there's actually, yes, there is a challenge in digital banks because there's intangible, so you don't know where the money goes to, but you created something which is a physical digital bank, but with a, I would say, pretty playful design approach towards in that industry at least. So I'm wondering about this because that there might be also a risk about having, you know, playful icons or even images you can upload, and this question of trust. So how did this direction come about, and how did you base your decisions about going this way?
Yeah, it's a very important question. So when we decided to design the new brand for the old company, we actually partnering with a branding agency in London. It's a brilliant branding agency. It's called Dixon Baxi. And they actually went through a very long process to try to understand what is the brand. They dig down into understanding what is the culture of the Philippines, how do they work. So they've been brave suggesting these new brands. They set on stones essentially the main visions, the key colors, and some design elements into there. But obviously they didn't design the entire journey, that it's more on us. But they've been so good to, or at least we've been so well to understanding the entire vision. So where we're going with this one, we actually embrace all of this sense of simplicity and playfulness, as well as being serious when it comes to more money into our process that is actually nowadays embedded in our DNA. And yeah, you're right that there might be some challenges for banks when to moves in an area which it could be a little bit too playful potentially, but we're doing incredibly well in the Philippines. That makes me think that the world is actually changing, right? And it makes me, it's some sort of intuitions, right? We've been touch base a little bit about this topic, and I think intuitions comes when you are so involved in what you're doing. It's not really magic at all. It's really when you're so involved and you can actually read in between the lines of the process and social media and the design and NPS and talking with different communities internally when you travel to the Philippines and you take the taxi. So you get that kind of sense of what is happening into the country. And I think what is happening, particularly for digital banks, is that the world is moving and people really appreciate the fact that there is a very friendly approach when it comes to money, rather than having a stiff and rigid position into that, which actually often is perceived a little bit snobby, I would say. I don't want to use the wrong word here, but when traditionally you go to banks, there are someone very well dressed. You know, we are also very well dressed. I'm from Italy anyway, so but the key points that I wanted to make is that someone very formal, someone very stiff, and often they say, you know, sign here, I will do the job for you. It's in a way, it's a little bit taking over the stage and say, you know, this is not for you, this is for us. But the reality is that moving money across different banks, it shouldn't be that complicated, and having a very good design that explains the entire process, it's actually is super important. And good design is really giving back dignity to people when they, you know, embarking with an unfamiliar process. And really often instead they sit behind, you know, big screens, big signages, big proposals in the marketing stage and big meetings rooms, etc. And they say, so, don't worry, this is not for you, it's for us to take care. Don't worry about everything, just sign up here, you know. And I think this one is not fair, right? And I think because people are busy with their life, it's actually not their job to understand the banking system, whatever it is. So it's our job to make it simple. Really try to make it simple. Obviously, there is a world of complexity behind, simplify things is not about removing elements. It's really distilling what you really want to communicate into the app and focus on the main parts.
Was it an easy decision to get the design through with your company?
That's not a very good question. Look, it has been blood and tears from the very beginning, but I have to say I wouldn't make it without the support of my company. I think it's another important message that I want to send across, our audience here. It's that designers can really be the troll in the cave and say, I'm a designer, leave me alone, I know how to design. I think you have to transmit what you're actually doing. And it's perfectly reasonable to understand that the business is very conscious about which is going to be right, is what is going to be designed into the app. It's perfectly, normal. As a designer, you have to empathize with your stakeholders, and your stakeholders have to understand what you're doing. Obviously, it's a long process, but the only way to overcome this one is to work incredibly hard and making sure what you're doing is actually sustained by research, is sustained by strategy, sustained by thinking, rather than, oh, I'm a designer, take it or leave it because, I'm a designer, you're not. And I think designers shouldn't be that kind of, egocentric way to design the pages. So going back to your questions, has been a long journey, and every time we share in new screens, we have multiple feedbacks from the business. So some very often very, very logical, but they also recognize that growing in the UX maturity of the company eventually pays back. And this is how we actually grow internally in the entire company as a design team. We do have a lot of responsibility, but yeah, really, we work very hard on it. We want to deliver.
And you, of course, founded it on research, on insights, on evidence that you gathered. You probably had also a very good way to transmit it to and win over people, because in the end, it's management is about numbers, but it's also people behind it. So you really also have to probably win them over with your love for and when you are sure about something and sure about the decision, and of course you can present facts, but you also have to win over hearts of people. Isn't that true?
But it's not a one-on-one battle. It's a process. It's a journey that you have to make people comfortable about your process. Of course, you can use data to back you up and you can use research, but once you grow in terms of credibility in the company, then also the business trusts you more. And this is actually super important to understand. And I couldn't make it without the sustain of the entire business. I can tell you by experience, I've been working in so many places, and then sometimes things doesn't happen because the business doesn't want a UX research, doesn't want a UX writer. They want to go faster. We're going to do later, MVP 2, which is MVP never to me. So they really don't pay attention to that kind of level. But I've been very lucky into this organization that the business, took, understand the process. They're really now embracing the process. And nowadays, it's actually when we suggest new changes, and they're now becoming, okay, yeah, I see you want to change this one. Is there any research behind this? So things that, UX researcher probably didn't really understand what it was probably before for some of those. But now, is there any kind of research that are backing up these kind of things? Yeah. So yeah, it's a process. It's a journey. So, to the people, work hard, make sure you deliver. And then when you go to present, make facts speak for you.
Last question. When we were talking beforehand, you said that there is a danger in speed in companies, and I think above all in startup companies. So, what's your take on what is important to make a good UX team thrive and grow and work well towards achieving the goals of a company, but also achieving good design?
Yeah, so this is connected to one of those key points, the process, which is the way of work, but also the principle. It is an alive organism, and it actually constantly moving. We don't do perfect things from the very beginning, and very often we had to compromise speed with what we actually deliver. We don't really compromise the design. What we do, we design because we have a progressive stage. We don't really rush straight into the UI, which is very time consuming. So we agree with the different steps. This actually helps a lot through the process. And another key point is that, yes, speeds, it's so obviously not in favor of everything. Although I will say that, overthinking, the design sometimes also has its own downside. We have a high standard. We don't deliver. We're not really comfortable with what we have to deliver. And there will be compromises, of course. There will be some gray areas that we have to compromise through the process. We do so, but thinking that along the way we're gonna adjust. There is also another part of speed, which is negative at personal level, right? It's easy to tend to overwork and constantly focusing on what you're doing for all the design team, and it is obviously for me, right? Even though you're very passionate about what you're doing, sometimes this one, doesn't play very well for you at a personal level, and and but really we, even though it's been blood and tears, when I've been talking to the design team last time, and I said, when you step back from your computer and take a look what we actually did, what we actually delivered, so all of those rush and stress and edgy moment, all of those clashes that we have POs and engineering teams and things doesn't work that I want to do, a computer saying no, all of those vanish, and all of those doesn't hurt you anymore. So it actually pays back, really.
And this is also the job of somebody like you, a design leader, to actually get back to the people and look back with pride at what you achieved together, and make people feel the pride and cherish the work that you did together. So I'm very happy about your winning not only the UX Design Awards twice, but many others as well, as you showed. So did that help you also in the company? And which impact do awards have?
Yeah, yeah, I hope so. We don't really go around the room with awards printed on our back, but it did help a little bit. I think particularly with UX design awards, and I'm not telling this because now I'm talking to you, there is a very strict process for you to analyzing the different journeys, and part of your journey for this year they've practically been writing a beautiful jury statements, which really nearly done what we've been doing. They probably express the things even better that we wanted to. And actually was thinking, oh, I see they can see us, they can see what we've been doing here. And that's so rewarding. I mean, does it help? I mean, at the end of the days, what it really helps is to make sure the user are in love with with the system that we have, and having this net score, NPS score, which is raising at a very high levels. And one of the 4 top reasons is because the app is very easy to use. It really flat out all the different, potentially frictions that you're gonna have in the future. Which, by the way, we obviously constantly having, I go to sleep with problems all the time. But yeah.
And I have to give the accolades back to you, because in order to get through our judging process, which is really pretty going deep and looking below the surface, is the ability to make clear what the product is based upon, what the research is based upon, what the findings were, which decisions were taken, why, and why the final design came about, and you are able to transmit this very well. So this actually won the hearts of the jury members, and I think this is, you're right, it is readable in their statements. So congratulations on this really great double work, and we're looking forward to hear how GoTyme will evolve. I know that you're also thinking about different markets, so there's a lot of work to do, and it's been a pleasure to having the chance to have some insights and glimpses into how you do things, Silvano. So thank you very much for taking the time and for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Great. So thanks to everybody who have been watching. If you missed anything, just jump back onto LinkedIn or our website very soon for our recording of this talk. And very important, of course, we are talking about awards. Join us again on the 1st of March, when we will announce the new award winners of the spring 2024 season. So that's only 2 weeks to go for the new award winners to be announced. And actually, if you're working on great design, that's also the chance to participate in the next awards as well. So from 1st of March, we're open for new submissions. Thanks a lot to everybody who watched us around the world. Take good care and see you very soon again. Bye-bye.